Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hive, which is in Anglo-Saxon Haven, so we've renamed it to Haven, just near the English Channel. We'd like to welcome our honored guests, Bhakti Eden, who is got a very responsible job. I won't get into the details because I don't want to embarrass him. But he has decided to give his life to Krishna consciousness, and he'll be entering the ashram in London fairly soon, within the next month. And so we welcome him. And all right, let's go. We hope everybody is well and safe, especially nowadays. There's a tsunami going on in India of COVID, and lots of people are dying, and it's not safe, so we should stay safe right now. We belong to Krishna, and we need to serve with this body and mind, so we need to keep it safe for him and for his service. Everything that we do should be for his service. Even our sleeping and our eating and taking care of our bodies, it all should be done as devotional service, because we're devotees of Krishna and we need to take care of Krishna's property. Okay, so Sanatana Goswami compiled a beautiful glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the basis of the book we're reading, the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Sanatana Goswami spent more time, or rather Lord Chaitanya spent more time instructing Sanatana Goswami than anyone else on the earth. So he is very senior, the older brother of Rupa Goswami. So his Srimad Bhagavatamrta Stotram goes like this: Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandoditaritya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaka Madbhagya, Mad Anandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochata kada hanamun chagadachin mam premna rit kandayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you may remember that in the beginning of this book, Jaimini Rishi was visiting the court of King Janamejaya. And King Janamejaya Maharaj was the son of Maharaj Parikshit. So Janamejaya asked Jaimini to recite the Mahabharata. You know, the Mahabharata that we hear at this time on the earth is from Vyasadeva. But there were 2 or 3 other Mahabharats written, and one of them was Jaimini Rishi's, which is no longer extant in human society. But at the time, when Janamejaya asked Jaimini to recite the Mahabharata, Janamejaya felt something very special. He was a special soul. He's the son of Maharaj Parikshit. You know, he's very qualified. And he felt something special. He felt it sweeter. There was something different about it. So then he asked Jaimini if he had something more. And Jaimini then recited the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. And it is considered to be the appendix, actually, of Janamejaya's Mahabharata, just as the Harivangsha is the appendix to Vyasadev's Mahabharata. So that's when the whole thing started. So now the story of Narada Muni looking for the best devotee, and then Gopakumar looking for the place, which is the best place, where the best Lord, his Lord, lives, Goloka Vrindavan. And that story is finished now. Gopakumar told his story to the Brahmana from Mathura, and Gopakumar, in telling the story, he told how he got his original name, Sarup, from Krishna, and he's in the family of Radharani, which is very, very special. And by the mercy of Sarup's story, telling the Mathura Brahmana how he came to Krishna consciousness, the Mathura Brahmana, by his grace, became fully absorbed in love of God, and then he met Krishna also, face to face. Now, we're back to the court of Janamejaya. We're starting with the 87th verse of the 7th chapter, which is the last chapter of the book. Not only that, we're going to begin now the Rasayan section of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta, which is very special because it gives all the perfect, relevant evidences of Shastra to describe the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness from A to Z. Starting with text 87, chapter 7, part 2 of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Sri Janamejaya said to the sage Jaimini, O foremost of Vaishnavas, I heard these same verses from Vaishampayana, and I derived some understanding from them. But now, by hearing these verses from you, my heart shines with fresh insight. Oh, just see the most amazing glories of the Supreme Lord's devotees. Commentary. The deep meaning of statements such as these from Sri Harivangsha can be fathomed only by the mercy of exalted devotees of the Supreme Lord. King Janamejaya acknowledges that the great sage Jaimini has kindly blessed him with the ability to understand the purport of these verses. The king praises Jaimini, his spiritual master, hoping to hear more. Text 89. Fearing that this narration is about to end, my heart burns with sadness. Please dispense some medical tonic by which my heart may again be fully satisfied. Commentary. Having offered suitable praise, Janamejaya now reveals his heart just as a person attacked by fever may dread the approach of death, Janamejaya dreads the end of his conversation with Mahamuni Jaimini. Janamejaya pleads for something to pacify his heart, as a fever-stricken man might beg medicine from his doctor. Janamejaya wants Jaimini to directly administer a rasayan tonic, flavored with the transcendental tastes of the glories of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. That elixir, administered through the ear, will make his heart again feel happy. Text 90 and 91. Sri Jaimini said, "My dear child, in the joy of having spoken about the glories of Goloka, your father recited several verses that complement these two wonderful histories. Those charming verses express various sweet ecstasies and bear the essential purport of all the Shrutis and Smritis. By chanting them, I am able to dispel the sorrow I feel in the absence of your respected father, and thus I travel happily in this world. Now I shall recite those verses to you." Commentary. Janamejaya's request reminds Jaimini that Parikshit Maharaj, after finishing the history of Gopakumar, recited a few verses of Sri Brahma Samhita that glorify Goloka, and spoke several verses of Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto that extol Mathura Brajabhumi and its residents. The verses of the 10th canto highlight various special ecstasies of Braja Bhakti that will be discussed in the commentaries. Since remembering these verses gives Jaimini relief from the disappointment caused by King Parikshit's departure, Janamejaya, Parikshit's son, should also feel enlivened to hear them. Text 92. Oh yes. Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhabita bis tabirja eva nija rupa taya kalabihi goloka eva nivasat yakilatma bhuto govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. He resides in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and simultaneously in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, who resembles his own spiritual figure and embodies the ecstatic potency, Hladini. Their companions are her confidants, extensions of her bodily form, who are permeated with ever blissful spiritual rasa. Commentary. Texts 92 through 95 come from the 5th chapter of Sri Brahma Samhita, in which Lord Brahma sings the glories of Adi Purusha, the original personality of Godhead, Sri Govinda. Here, in the 37th verse of that chapter, Lord Brahma reveals the super excellence shown by Govinda and his associates, the paraphernalia in the supreme abode, Goloka. In the phrase Nija Rupataya Kalabihi, Krishna in Goloka is accompanied by his counterparts. The word Kalabihi can be understood in different ways. One meaning of Kala is the means of artistic expression, which in this context indicates Krishna's skills in the arts of enchantment. By those skills, he exploits the wondrous attractions of his beauty and personal qualities. Kala also means expanded parts, which can be understood to refer either to Srimati Radharani and her principal companions, or to all the Gopas and gopis of Goloka. The phrase Nija Rupataya means either that the devotee expansions of Krishna, the gopis and all his cowherds, are spontaneous in their devotional exchanges with him, or that they are expansions of his personality and similar to him in form. They are fully endowed with Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, direct perception of transcendental ecstasy, which they know in its most intense aspects. In fact, the power of bhakti eternally manifests these various devotees to serve as prototype emblems of each rasa. So this means that to have a form similar to Krishna's doesn't mean in Goloka that the forms are like him. In Vaikuntha, the Swarup city means that the forms are very similar to Vishnu's form. But in this case, it means that the forms are made of the same spiritual energy, Satchidananda, and they share in the same opulences as Krishna. That's by his mercy. The second paragraph. Krishna is the supersoul of all beings, the witness and regulator dwelling always in the hearts of everyone. Yet he also lives eternally in Goloka to enjoy with his intimate devotees. He is the original Purusha, the source of all avatars, greater even than the Lord of Vaikuntha. To indicate greater distance, Brahma uses the third person pronoun tam to refer to Govinda. Tamaham bhajami, I worship that Lord. In this way, Brahma speaks as if Govinda, who resides in such a faraway place, were impossible for him to see. Text 93. Goloka namni nijadamni tale chatasya devi mahesha haridam asuteshu teshu te te prabhava nichaya vihitas jayena govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. Lowest of all is the mundane world, Devi Dham. Next above it is the abode of Mahesh, Mahesh Dham. Above Mahesh Dham is the abode of Hari, Haridham. And above them all, is Krishna's own realm named Goloka. I adore the primeval Lord, Govinda, who has allotted to the rulers of those created realms their respective authorities. Commentary. This is verse 43 of the same chapter of Sri Brahma Samhita. Below the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands countless worlds, presided over by Lord Narayana, Lord Shiva, and the goddess Durga Devi. Sri Narayana rules over the Vaikuntha planets and the replicas of Vaikuntha within the material realm, such as Mahakalapur, the abode of liberation. Devi rules the entire material universe, and she is the presiding deity of the unmanifested material nature, the eighth layer of the shell that encloses the universe. The infinite variety of wonders displayed in all these worlds is produced by the personal power of Govinda. Thus his energies, non-different from him, because they proceed from him, are the source of endless variety. Govinda's expansions, like Narayana, Shiva, and Devi, are wonderful, and the worlds those expansions create are wonderful. Certainly then, the original world of Govinda is the most wonderful. Text 94 and 95. Shriya Kantak Kantak Padama Purushak Kalpa Tadavo Druma Bhumishchintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam Katak Ganam Natyam Gamanan Abhivangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Padamapitad Ashwajyamapicha Nayatra Chiradbi Sadati Sudabhi Vyas Chasumahan Nimeshar Dharkyo Va Brajati Nahi Yatrapi Samayaha Bhajeshvedad Dvipam Tamaham Iha Goloka-mähätmya Bidantas te santak shiti charak kapitaye. Iti. That's it. Iti means that's it. Thus. I worship that transcendental realm known as Shvetadvip, whereas loving consorts, the Lakshmis, in their unalloyed spiritual essence, practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, their only lover, where every tree fulfills all desires, where the soil is made of purposed gems, and the water is nectar, and every word a song, every step a dance, and the flute is the favorite attendant. Effulgence in that realm is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all to be tasted and enjoyed. There, numberless cows always give transcendental oceans of milk, and transcendental time, ever present, without past or future, eternally exists, not subject to passing away even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka, only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. So this should instill in us or arouse us in us extreme gratitude, because to hear these verses in the proper context by the proper persons is very rare indeed, very rare. And the knowledge of how rare it is, what to speak of the verse, the subject itself, is enough a drop of it is enough to satisfy the soul completely. So imagine what it would be like to drown in an ocean of it. Yes, time to jump in, head first or feet for whatever. Commentary. Here, Sri Brahma Samhita 556 directly speaks of the glories of Sri-Goloka. Brahma calls Goloka by the esoteric name Shvetadvip and portrays it with several short descriptions tied together by the word yatra, in that place. All the girlfriends of the Supreme in Goloka are goddesses of fortune, or in other words, they are in no way inferior to Mahalakshmi, the consort of Lord Narayana. In Goloka, however, the supreme enjoyer is not Narayana, but the original Godhead, Sri Govinda. He is the lover of all the Lakshmis of Goloka. In some manuscripts of Brahma Samhita, we find the variant word Parama Purusha, which is in the plural form. With that word, the verse can be understood to mean that either that the husbands of the gopis in Goloka are all Mahapurushas, fully surrendered devotees of Govinda, or that Govinda expands himself into numerous duplicate forms to associate with each gopi simultaneously. All the trees in Goloka can fulfill all desire. All talk is as pleasing as pure music. all movement has the aesthetic grace of dancing, and Krishna always holds his flute affectionately in his hands. In Goloka, the Param Jyoti, supreme light, comprising perfect consciousness and bliss, is directly perceivable asvadyam. This Jyoti can be identified either with Krishna himself or with the unique prema that pervades Goloka, or even with the lamps and other sources of light in Goloka, all of which radiate absolute light and ecstasy because they emanate from the bodily effulgence of Parabrahman, Sri Krishna. It can also be identified with the nectar of Krishna's lips, which in Goloka can be tasted, asvadyam, by his most worthy devotees, the divine gopis. The cows of Goloka are known as Surabhi and Kamadhenu. They flood the land with their milk. And absent from Goloka is the passing of time, from the smallest fraction of a second to the ultimate length of Brahma's life. In the material world, all events are pervaded by the control of time. But in Goloka, time has no dominance. Sequences of events may appear for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees in their pastimes, but never manifest are any of the material effects of time: birth, change, fear, and destruction. Goloka is called Shvetadvip, but it is a different place from the Shvetadvip found within the ocean of milk in the material universe. In this universe, only a few rare saints know that highest Shvetadvip, and they are rarely seen, not only because they are so few, but also because they generally prefer to remain in seclusion to avoid materialistic association and to freely relish Krishna consciousness. Thus, Goloka is a very secret place, unknown to most people. The Supreme Person, the Supreme Person also appears in Shvetadvip of the milk ocean, that's in the material world. But there, not all the women are his goddesses of fortune. He is not the only male consort, and his flute is not visible as his constant companion. Shvetadvip in the material universe is surrounded by an ocean of milk, but that ocean is not created from cow's milk. All these special features can be seen only in Goloka, the Shvetadvip above Vaikuntha. Sri-Goloka is called Shweta, white, because it is supremely pure, and also because it is flooded by the white milk of Krishna's cows. It is a dweep, island, not only in the sense of being a place separate from all others, but also because it is a secluded place, a shelter, the residence of exalted, pure souls such as Nanda Maharaj. Like Mathura Mandala on earth, Goloka is shaped like a round island, bordered by the shores of the river Yamuna. And in Goloka, milk flows so abundantly that the whole Goloka world seems to be an island floating in the middle of the ocean of milk. Predominated by cows, Sri Mathura in the spiritual world is like the milk ocean, milk everywhere. And within that region is Sri Vrindavan, the white island, Shvetadvip, the land where Nanda Maharaj's cows graze and ever drench the ground with their milk. Text 96. Furthermore, how pious Punya Bhatta Brajabubo Yadayam Nrilinga Gudak Purana Purusho Vanachitra Malyaha Gapalayan Sahabalak Kwanayans Chavenum Vikrindayans Chatikgirit Ramarchitangrihi. Furthermore, how pious are the tracts of land in Braja, for there the primeval personality of Godhead, disguising himself with human traits, wanders about, enacting his many pastimes, adorned with wonderfully variegated forest garlands. Lord Krishna, whose feet are worshipped by Lord Shiva and the goddess Rama, vibrates his flute as he tends the cows in the company of Balaram. Commentary. Starting with this verse, the next 59 verses come from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Of these, the first 11, texts 96 through 106, establish in a general way the glories of Brajabhumi and its residents. The current verse, 10:44-13, was spoken by the women of Mathura city. Krishna had just arrived in Mathura from Nanda Gokula. Early that morning, he had killed the elephant Kulaviyapida, and now, as the women watched, he was wrestling with Chanura. Shocked to see such an unfair competition between powerful athletes and little boys, some of the women sharply criticized their friends and the other people present. Alas, what a greatly irreligious act the members of this royal assembly are committing. As the king watches this fight between the strong and the weak, these assembly members also want to see it. Bhagavatam 10:44-7. Other outraged women spoke the verse under discussion, in which they declared that only Brajabhumi is a pious place, unlike the metropolis of Mathura. The women referred to Brajabhuva in the plural form to offer Braja respect, to indicate its large bhuva in the plural, its large extent, and to include not only the land of Braja, but all its living beings, and even its sticks, stones, and other inert objects. In Braja, Sri Krishna is visible to everyone's eyes in all his charm, wandering about to enjoy his many different pastimes. As the speakers of this verse described that scene, they thought, this assembly, in which Krishna is being threatened with defeat, should be condemned. But the land of Braja, where Krishna moves about and plays, is pious. The people of that place are good, but the residents of this city are not. The word anjati means he moves about, but it may also mean he honors. Taken in that sense, it indicates that Krishna honors the people of Braja by his presence. While speaking this verse, the women used the pronoun ayam, this, and one of them pointed her finger towards Krishna. The women avoided saying Krishna's name because they considered him like their own husband. A chaste woman does not speak of her husband by name. And because they were afraid if they pronounced his name out loud, they might lose control of themselves in ecstasy. Someone hearing the women condemn Mathura might assert that from the authoritative prediction of the venerable Rishi Garga, it was already known that Krishna would become the master of Mathura. That city then, and all its residents, gathered at the assembly were destined to become very fortunate. As unavoidable as this truth might have been, the women of Mathura still insisted that Brajabhumi is the only truly pious place. Krishna, the primeval Lord of all living beings, is realized by spiritual aspirants in countless ways. He is the Supersoul dwelling in every creature's heart, and his feet are worshipped by Lord Shiva and the goddess Mahalakshmi. Even so, in Braja, he disguises himself as an ordinary human being. To deceive enemies like Kamsa, he hides his prowess, and to enjoy with his devotees, he hides in the bushes of Vrindavan. In Braja, Krishna wears all sorts of garlands made with forest flowers. He is always accompanied by Bala, his older brother, Balarama, or by forces, Bala, an army of friends. Krishna herds his cows, plays on his flute, and enjoys the rasa dance and other pastimes with his devotees. But the residents of Mathura think of Krishna differently. Mathura's eminent Kshatriyas, steeped in knowledge of the Smritis and Shrutis, always see Krishna as the timeless personality of Godhead, an attitude that prevents them from having more intimate relationships with him. They and the other residents of Mathura, seeing him as Vasudeva, the Lord in the heart, feel no urgent need to have him always present before them outside the heart. Generally, the devotees of Mathura envision Krishna with 4 arms and all the other opulent features of the Supreme Lord, and they remember how he is worshipped by Lord Shiva and other demigods. Consequently, they cannot realize the same fullness of prema as the devotees of Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, all the Brajavasis are always so eager to see Krishna that they cannot tolerate being absent from him even for a moment. They forever see him in his most attractive, human-like form, and their love for him is always fully awakened. Thinking of him as the darling son of Sri Nanda and Yashoda, they feel for him the sweetest of sentiments. Their relationships with him are a treasure so precious and confidential, they feel that their lives depend upon protecting it. Their relationships with him, a treasure so precious and confidential, they feel that their lives depend upon protecting it. Worshipping him in various intimate ways, they enjoy the extreme limits of happiness. Certainly, they are more fortunate than anyone else, and so the land where they live is naturally the most fortunate of places. Of course, the Yadavas of Mathura are great Vaishnavas, situated on the transcendental platform of love of God, but Krishna never appears among them decorated with wonderful garlands of forest flowers, as he does among the Vrajavasis. And even if by his royal wealth, he does sometimes acquire such garlands in the big city of Mathura, we cannot expect to see him tending the cows there. And even if he owns a royal herd of cows and sometimes plays at taking care of them, how in Mathura can he always be in the company of Balarama? Very often, one or the other of the 2 transcendental brothers has to go somewhere else to carry out his duties. And in Mathura, how can Krishna play with all the young cowherd boys? The young Yadus may sometimes dress up as cowherd boys in games to imitate Krishna's friends in Braja, But even then, in Mathura, Krishna doesn't play his flute, nor does he exhibit the many special pastimes unique to Braja, like his Rasa Leela. By using the word kridaya with his playful pastimes, the speakers of this verse hinted at Krishna's rasa dance, but due to feminine shyness, they avoided mentioning it by name. The last phrase of this verse states that Krishna's feet are worshipped by Giritra Rama, Lord Shiva, and Mahalakshmi. But there is another way to understand these words, a way that shows careful regard for the consistency of the verse as glorification of Vrajabhumi. While Krishna held Govardhan Hill, Srimati Radharani freed him from the danger of dropping the mountain by relieving him of his fatigue with her loving glance. Thus she, the original goddess of fortune, Rama, saved him from the mountain Giritra. Or else Krishna himself, having saved Brajabhumi by means of the mountain, is called Giritra. And because Radha gives pleasure to that Govardhan Dari, she is called Giritra Rama. She worships Krishna's feet, but only in Braja. So Braja alone is pious. By recounting the glories of Sri-Goloka, Parikshit Maharaj realized such an advanced level of prema that he felt the ecstatic mood of the women of Mathura Puri, and in this frame of mind, he sang this verse. Hare Krishna. That's exactly 8 o'clock. So we'll stop the reading here. These are very, very exalted thoughts and descriptions of the highest realm of existence, which should be our goal. And to hear them put so nicely by Sanatana Goswami through the lips of Gopiparanadhana Prabhu's translation, which is very, very special. We should feel extreme delight and extreme good fortune and extreme gratitude. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. And if there's any points that came out that you want to reflect upon or comment upon or discuss, please be our guest. Hare Krishna. Bhakti Eden has something to say. It's okay, that's okay. Not to worry.
Thank you for that, Maharaj, and amazing reading. It's really, really nice to be here and to hear the pastimes and to hear what it's like to be in the spiritual world. The one thing I wanted to reflect on was the difference between him and his pastimes as a cowherd and his pastimes as a kshatriya in, is it Mathura?
In Mathura, that's right.
And the different moods between the two.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could just expand on that a little bit, Maharaj. And
well, I don't know what more I can say than what has already been said in these purports. It's pretty deeply analyzed. But suffice it to say that intimacy is everyone's most cherished thing. Therefore, in the spectrum of relationships, even in the material world, if there's separation between husbands and wives or family members, fathers or mothers and sons. It's intense. It's the most intense. Family is most intense separation from them. But the most intense separation is the one that comes from the most intimate relationship, the wife or the lover, or the spouse or the partner. Because the relationship is most intimate. It's free. They can say and do anything with each other. So, for that reason, when there is less intimacy, or the less intimacy there is, and the more the focus of attention is on the greatness, or the opulence, or the comfort that comes from that relationship or in that environment, it cripples the intimacy. It doesn't allow the intimacy to come forward, and therefore it's not as satisfying. But interestingly, in the purports it described how the Mathura Vasis are in Krishna Prema. They have love for Krishna. They're not in the material world. So it's not a degree of high, it's not a matter of higher or lower. But in order to describe these pastimes, Prabhupada used to take license in English. The word great is an absolute, or perfect, better. The word perfect, that's an absolute statement. You can't say more perfect. It doesn't, if you're writing your essay in high school and you say more perfect. No, perfect is an absolute, But Prabhupada chose in English to describe, Dwarka as perfect, Mathura as more perfect, and Vrindavan as most perfect. They're all perfect, but one is more perfect than the other in terms of intimacy. Therefore, the relationships with the Brajavasis to Krishna is so intimate that even if he passes behind a tree when they're out in the forest, the cowherd boys and Krishna, and if he passes behind a tree and they can't see him for that moment, they think they're losing their lives. That's the level of intensity of love that's in Vrindavan that you don't see anywhere else, including Mathura. When someone is everything to another person, we may think it's like that in the material world, but it's not. Because there's so many things to distract, because everything here is for me. And therefore there's so many desires and so many things and so many opulences and so many things to get and so see and do. But in Goloka Vrindavan, it's completely simple, because theirs is only one thing, and that's Krishna. But still the variety is there. The variety of relationships is there. It's indescribably wonderful, satisfying, beautiful, sweet. So that's the essence. The essence is the sweetness of the relationships, the sweetness of the forms, the sweetness of relationships, the sweetness of everything. It's indescribable. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Rati Manjari said, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Jai Rati.
Chali Davison said, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Charlie Davidson. Haribol, Dr. Charlie.
Gopakanya Devidasi said, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all friends, blessed to be in your blissful associations of daily readings, Circle Maharaj.
She's so consistently blissful. Isn't it? She's so consistently blissful.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, glories to Prabhupada.
Krishnangi Mulder said Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Who?
Krishnangi Mulder.
Krishnangi. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Ananda Murti Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Nandamurti. She's in Japan.
Jai
Osaka.
Jai Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for everyday reading of Brhad Bhagavatam. I feel the topmost essence is here. Raj is the highest place and very rare to attain for everyone.
Yes, it is true. And even if your eternal relationship is in Mathura or Dwarka or anywhere else, still, when you hear this, it'll take you there. It'll awaken in you what your original relationship is. And the residents of all those places, they acknowledge, without envy, the glories of Goloka-mähätmya. Hare Krishna.
From Gopiparanadhana Devidasi. So profound and authentic, with so much shastric advices, nowhere to doubt. Just closing the eyes and hear attentively only. Jai Maharaj, thank you again and again.
Jai Gopiparanadhana, thank
for
you
your
very much.
merciful reading.
Consistently blissful. Haribol.
Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi Dasi. She's in Florida. She's my god sister.
Hare Krishna, it's getting better and better as time goes by, hearing all this description about the spiritual world. What a great escape from this material environment. How fascinating it is.
Yes. Supremely fascinating. Supreme relief. Only thing that is left to do is to share it with others. Try to relieve people who are suffering from this.
Gopiparanadhana Devidasi. Please Maharaj, I wanted to share this to you. Hare Krishna friends. Yesterday in Boxtel in Holland, we were going for an evening japa walk with much amazement. We saw Sri Baladoji in second-hand shop with big smile and embracing arms, as if he would jump out of the window to us. We couldn't wait for today to go and get him and welcome him home.
So did you? Well, must have. They must have.
Many years ago we named our Namahata Boxtel by his name Balaram Dham and are doing Pramdani.
Pramidwani.
Sri Balaram Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
We welcomed him with much gratitude, love, devotions, and emotions. We gave him warm Ganga and Tulasi bath, did Dupa, Deepa, and flower arti, and offered him 5 different kinds of fruits and yogurt as Navidya.
Very nice.
He's heavy, big, and with big smile as always.
Very nice.
The hidden truth. Why, how, when, with whom, and for what purpose. He came and stayed in that second-hand shop is still a big question to us. We searched his brother, Sri Jagannath, and sister Subhadra Devi, but couldn't find. May Sri Gurudev Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada reveal us one day when we purified our hearts with the loving service and devotion to the Lord. But at present moment, we felt that the owner of Namahata Boxtel is back home.
Yes, that's a fact. You named it that, and he showed up. Wonderful. Transcendental pastime. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wonderful. When things like this happen to us in our daily lives, it just increases our faith and appreciation and gratitude to Krishna, because you can see him personally doing things. Yes. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. He gives everything you need, preserves what you have. Therefore, our love should grow as a result of these things. Hare Krishna.
Dear devotees, please bless us that we can do loving service at His lotus feet forever. Your servant Gopakanya Devi Dasi,
Jai Gopakanya.
BCS.
Little did we know, should have known by your name, but little did we know.
From Rati
In the
Manjari.
middle of Holland, imagine. Okay.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Indeed, another amazing transcendental reading. I have a small point of reflection to offer, namely that the ladies of Mathura, being forced to watch an unfair match, openly condemned it. To me, that reminded me of how we as devotees should not placidly tolerate offenses being committed or spoken in our presence, but speak out against it or leave. Is this a correct understanding?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, sometimes devotees misinterpret the word humility and tolerance that Lord Chaitanya describes, and don't do that. But actually, when one is offended, if the offense is going towards oneself, then it shouldn't bother you, and you should not take it seriously, and you should not let it disturb you at all. But if you hear the Lord being blasphemed, or another Vaishnava being blasphemed, if you don't feel fire, then you're not a full devotee. If you hear an exalted devotee, especially, or the deity or the Lord blaspheme, you should feel fiery anger, and either defeat the person or, like you said, leave. Don't stay in a place. Don't stay in a place where you will become contaminated more and more. Hare Krishna. We thank all of you for those wonderful reflections and discussion. It's very lovely. And we'll continue with this Rasayan section of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta, in which all of the things we learned through the pastimes are being distilled and explained deeper and deeper. Especially by Sanatana Goswami's commentary, because he's famous as the one who can see the different angles of everything. Very alternative explanations for everything. Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Same place, same time, same subject. De creme de la creme, de la creme, de la creme. Hare Krishna. See you then.